Okay, thank you for joining us today. If you're in California today, if you're in Europe tonight. Tonight we have 3 speakers from Europe, all of them dealing with new technologies and art. Christina joins us from Austria, Hanna from Finland, and Javier from Spain. And I'm going to introduce each one separately, briefly. As usual, my introduction are notoriously very brief, but you can go to lasertalks.com and get not only a longer bio, but also a link to their work. Hanna Haslaahti is an artist based in Finland who works with avatars and artificial intelligence. And if you're ready, I'll just give you the podium.
Okay, thank you. So hello, good evening also from me. I'm giving this talk from Helsinki, Finland. I'm media artist and director Hanna Haslaahti, working with digital image and interaction, creating new relationships between moving image and people. Thanks, Piera, very much for inviting me to give this talk. Unfortunately, at the moment, I'm in a deep grief about the war in Europe. And as you perhaps all know, Finland shares a long eastern border with Russia. When the Pandora's box again opened last year, I felt the return of the intergenerational trauma, which I thought I had forgotten. My grandmother was 10 years old when the last phase of the Second World War began in Finland. Her family had 2 hours to leave their home before Russians invaded their city in the eastern part of Finland called Karelia. Overnight, 70,000 inhabitants of Viborg were cleared out and replaced with Russian newcomers. The life continued in the city, only the people and the language had been mysteriously swapped. My great-grandmother always told me the same story when I was asking about the retreat. Before leaving her home in Viborg, she decided to quickly hang the laundry because she was sure that they are coming back very soon. After the war, Karelia was then annexed to Russia, and she gave up the hope of ever returning. The thought of unknown strangers settling in her home and finding the clean laundry as some kind of welcome present haunted her for the rest of her life. I think it was one of those nice stories which were supposed to stop me for asking more questions. Life went on, and soon the Second World War was just another horrible episode in the history books. At the school, it was explained to students in a detached and rational manner, but deep down it left everybody confused. How could this have happened? And how can people suddenly go insane and break all the unspoken human agreements between them and start a massacre? So this is the image that started the journey for me. I saw it in Finnish newspaper as a teenager, and it immediately put some kind of spell on me. It was asking me all kind of questions. The situation it depicted was in such a strong contrast to my own environment, which was a peaceful, democratic Nordic society without any major religious or political tensions. But only a few decades ago, this event took place in Vienna, the city my family just visited for a fun holiday. In this snapshot, it is 1938, and Austria has just been annexed to Nazi Germany. Public spectacles of humiliation was a common sight in the streets. The Nazi terror had been going on in every level of society for a few years, and nobody was able to stand up against it. It was generally consented by the authorities. I'm sure all of us have experienced bullying in one way or another. It usually starts as an innocent joke or a game. Then suddenly we are taken over by mob rule, like these people in the streets of Vienna. The young boys here, perhaps members of Nazi Jugend, have gotten an idea that the Jews need to work, so why not make them scrub the streets clean? Gathering random victims and forcing them to scrub the street attracted a crowd of passerbys who were happily cheering to the spectacle. Finally, work for Jews. this spectacle returns to us in many different forms. An image strikingly similar taken in the streets of Madrid in 2017. Dutch football fans thought the Roma women should earn money instead of just begging for it. So they ordered them to do push-ups, and the bystanders agreed that it's okay and good entertainment. In all of these public spectacles of humiliation, the structure seems to be the same. People are divided in three groups: the bullies, the victims, and the bystanders. Instead of telling the story with actors or with documentary footage, could there perhaps be another way to engage audience in experiencing crowd behavior? Something that would make them realize their role as performer in this public spectacle. So those were some of my thoughts and reasons behind Captured. It takes shapes as an interactive installation which captures your face and creates new identity for you in a virtual community. The experience is divided in two phases. In the first one, you create your personal avatar, and in the second one, your avatar joins the previously captured avatars. The personal avatars take different roles in the simulation, modeling unpredictable moods of human behavior. Here's a drawing I made when I started to think the narrative structure for Captured. Here on the left is a visualization of chronological narrative, which to me seems to be advancing into the reality as one directional logical whole. On the left, there's a narrative structure that resembles a plant that has a more diverse relationship with reality. It has a branching roots and many branching leaves, and it's aware of itself from tip to the toe. There's not a central character or not a narrative. The narrative is not following any particular path. With this drawing, I don't mean the traditional branching narrative where you advance and then you make a decision to turn to left or right. This image is kind of depicting a situation where you are aware of all the parts simultaneously, and it resembles some kind of social simulation model. I think the simulation is very informative approach for a wide variety of fields, and it also gave me a structure to think about crowd logic as a simulation. And it's amazing how this quote by Sherry Turkle, written in 2009, somehow still is very accurate and defines how we are positioned in relation to simulation technology. Simulation gives you an environment to act in the narrative instead of following in it. It's sometimes also difficult to distinguish individuals from the crowd, so deeply they are integrated in the fabric of the mob. In the book of Evil Hour by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a strange group phenomena is undermining the authority of the leaders in a small village in South America. Every night, somebody is distributing posters around the village that reveal dirty secrets about the villagers. Seems like a little bit like social media nowadays. Those, of course, in power try their best to stop this happening, but whatever they do, every night new posters appear in public space. The mayor gets so desperate that he asks the local fortune teller to look from the cards who is behind this campaign. And Cassandra gives a very intriguing answer. It's the whole town and it's nobody. The cyclical narrative progresses in Captured between two main states, which are switched on by avatar that decides not to follow the existing state. That special avatar is called Game Changer. When it enters, it can change the course of the narrative. If it comes during the peaceful state, the wandering state, it manages to provoke the avatars against each other. And when it enters during the bullying state, it manages to stop the bullies and diffuse the emerged groups. So why use doubles in storytelling, and what kind of experience it can give to the audience? For me, double somehow lends imagery to the universal human problem, the relation of me to myself. According to the Anton Ray, the smallest possible theater is a theater not without spectators or without actors, but one in which the spectator perceives himself as an actor, confronting himself as his own performer. So what are your doubles like? Do you feel threatened by the voices in your head, or do they help you find the way in your life? Do they appear to you at night to reveal how endless your mind is and welcome you to explore it without fear? In my childhood, I'd had a strong sense of a person standing every night by my bed. It would always be there, just standing, the head bent down to watch calmly my sleeping body. It was neither scary or pleasant. It was just reality, how my mind operated. I realized that the unity of human body is fiction, that the so-called real me inside my body does not exist, but I'm scattered in various locations in time and space with the help of my doubles. The earliest connotations of the double in Indo-European lore were benign, entailing the immortality of the self. The double stems from animistic beliefs on the manifestation of the soul in shadows and reflections, but also of a knowledge that there are different agencies in human mind, some which we are not constantly aware of and cannot control. In the recent academic research of human consciousness, a quantum dissipate model of brain has revealed mental activity that can be interpreted as a discourse. By repeated trial and error, the brain constructs within itself an understanding of its surroundings, which can be described as double. Consciousness is seen to arise from the permanent dialogue between the brain and its double. However, by the post-Enlightenment era, Western belief in the preservative powers of the double had eroded, and the meaning was inverted. The double or the doppelganger became a spectral projection of the self. In the 18th century Romantic German literature, the evil double was one of the most popular themes. The era introduced a new type of double narrative with shadow and mirror as its images, both of which appear to the ego as its uncanny likeness. In these stories, the double has become an independent entity, aiming to destroy the person where it has emerged. The main character, usually out of vanity, has sold his reflection or shadow to the devil, with the consequence of unleashed double projection turning against him. The 20th century concepts of double, so-called avatar, emerged first in the realm of digital role-playing. Here's a group shot of the famous all-Finnish Barracan team, which was quite successful in World of the Warcraft. In recent years, we have been shifting more and more into virtual spaces, and in the same time, avatars as our virtual placeholders are becoming increasingly personal. While the first generation of avatars were all about being somebody else, the next generation of avatars are about who am I, exploring the tension between the virtual and physical world. When I started to develop Captured together with Tyler Henry, creative technologist from New York in 2019, we were both very inspired by theatrical apparatuses and early cinema devices, and decided to find a way of updating these amazing technologies. Our goal was to find technology which is fast, reliable, open source, and also not too accurate. Our capturing system is based on RGB stereo image pair, which is then modeled into 3D with the help of Morphable Model. The whole process takes only a couple of seconds and produces quite realistic, pleasant, and recognizable face. One of the strange things when dealing with 3D face reconstruction is uncanny valley. Too much detail becomes repulsive, and we wanted to, of course, avoid it. Here's a comparison of two reconstruction technologies, and you can see that the one on the left kind of provides more accurate reconstruction of my face, and the one on, on the right and on the left, I'm confusing when I'm looking at it from here. But anyway, the one with the real sensor is more accurate. And the one with the stereo RGB image is perhaps less accurate, but it kind of anyway produces lightness in both of these versions. And also we noticed that making captures with infrared light is very confusing, because it's sometimes it makes holes in people's faces. So it's very unpredictable, unreliable technology compared to the good old RGB image, which is producing reliable results every time. So here's an interesting comparison from Uncanny Valley idea, which was of course presented by Masahiro Mori already in the 70s in relation to robot design. He noticed that too much realism makes the robot look repulsive for people. And I found this other chart in internet. Unfortunately, I don't remember where I got it, but it kind of represents quite well what happens when people encounter their own personal avatar. The first reaction is really, oh my God, it's funny. But then as you get to look at your double more, you realize that it's actually quite good representation of you. So then it becomes believable and becomes as your placeholder in the story. Okay, so that's from me. Thank you very much for listening. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Very good. So a question about your career in a sense. So one of your early pieces, right now I was going to Google, but then I don't have time. One of your early pieces was about shadows, right? I don't remember the title. What was the title?
I think it must be White Square.
White Square, right, White Square. So you were dealing with shadows, and then you now talk about the double, and now you work with avatars. So there seems to be some kind of linear progression. The shadow
Absolutely.
is attached to my body, okay?
Yeah.
It does something, it's a reflection of what my body is doing, and it dies with me. And the double, well, it's in my mind, it's still somehow attached to me. The avatar is digital, and potentially it's immortal. It could live after me. So am I right to see some kind of progression there?
Yes, I think that's very nice that you point it out this way, because I've always kind of questioned this idea of the unity of self and body. And I really feel that in my artwork, I try to sort of prove this fact that we are very extended beings. We take shape through our imagination in different forms and make many things anthropomorphic in our minds. And I think the kind of like the shadows and the avatars are our agencies in world. And I think to use them as in a sort of narrative tools or agents in the storytelling is making it a bit more personal also, I would say, because when you see yourself acting in a scene which perhaps is a little bit unpleasant or questionable, you have a possibility to see yourself as a performer, an actor, and observe it indifferently than you would look at somebody in the film performing as an actor. And I think it kind of like makes very interesting new relationship between you and moving image.
Right. So again, if anybody's question, feel free to post it in the Q&A. Another thing I was curious about is more technical. I mean, everybody's talking about the metaverse. How do you see your art evolving now that the metaverse is becoming more real? I mean, going from real, I mean, at least my perception was that the metaverse was for games. And after a major corporation endorsed it, it seems to become more, I don't know, industrial. So.
Yes, I think the main problem, I just recently reread the Neil Stephenson novel, Metaverse. I guess, have you read it from the 90s?
Snow Crash?
Snow Crash, yeah, Snow Crash, where he sort of like invents the metaverse and how it functions. And somehow the corporate domination is already there. It's a big part of the narrative that this is not a free world. And that's for me, I think, the main problem in metaverse, because it's not going to be open source. It's completely industrial space and controlled by these companies. And I think we already seen what they have done in our smartphones, and they are completely controlling our social lives at the moment. So I feel that as an artist, I feel that there's no freedom of expression in that kind of environment. It's completely dictated or organized by these big companies, and that's why I see it as a threat, seriously, and I feel that nobody shouldn't go there and feel very intimidated by this idea at the moment, at least.
How is your avatar art preserved today?
Well, everything's on a hard drive. And that's basically how is it. It's Captured was actually recently acquired by ZKM, which is a big media art museum here in Germany. And I was thrilled by the archival process, how they do it. So basically, they archive the computer, but then they archive separately the software also, which is manufacturing it.
So I was thinking, don't we need also metaverse? I mean, should the museums get together to create a metaverse of digital art?
Absolutely, there should be some kind of alternatives. So that sounds much better if there would be some kind of open source. Or I'm also thinking, I don't know how it is in US, but in Europe we have a lot of public broadcasters, and I think they would be maybe a good platform to move into metaverse and see what they could do over there.
Okay, good. Yeah, interesting conversation.
I'm sorry, I have a question from Therese, and I want to give space already for Javier, because the time is running. So please, Therese, go to my website and look at the video. I have a documentation.
No rush.
Yeah, no rush. I didn't see Therese's question. You want to read it?
Yes. So the question goes like this. Please say more about how the avatars performed as victims, bullies, and the mob. What happens?
Victims, bullies, and mob.
Yeah. What happens when they shift from someone else to who am I? Well, I think if I explain it, it will sound very complicated, but if you look at my video, it's quite simple. So basically, your avatar is captured, and then you are an actor in this community. And all of these avatars become independent. So you don't have any chance to control them or say which role they should take. They are independent and they are part of our narrative. And this cyclical narrative is also recycling roles. So maybe in the first confrontation, you see your avatar as a bully, but in the next one, it might be a victim. So so you can see your avatar in all of these roles, because the narrative is cyclical and ongoing. So you are not always the same role in this story. I can also answer emails if there's anybody who wants to know more about this piece, but perhaps it's best to let Javier to take the
fascinating.
stage.
Fascinating. Too bad we cannot meet in person. I'm sure this would be a conversation that continues
Yes,
in the cafe.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. On
you.
to